This is page 8 in our music theory workbook. We're going to learn about rests. And just like we have notes, we also have rests. And rests are there because in the English language or any language, we need to pause. We use commas. We use periods. We start new phrases. And we use those rests to separate ideas. Sometimes we use them just as a pause, a comma in the music. And we have a few basic ones here on this page that we need to learn about. Of course, we know a quarter note receives one beat of sound. So a quarter rest receives one beat of silence, indicates a beat of silence. A half rest looks like a hat. I like to say this: half a gentleman leaves his top hat on. A whole gentleman takes his top hat off. And here's what they look like. Now, we're not going to be able to draw these very good, so I'll show you how we draw our quarter rests. And if you look at composers throughout history, they certainly weren't terribly consistent either. We also have our half rests. You'll notice that they are on the third line. 1, 2, third line. That is very, very important that you draw them on the third line. So we're going to write third line. On. Okay? Now this one is under the fourth line. So I'll put fourth line. And we'll write under. Make sure you do the same so you know exactly where we are and what's going on. And we're going to use this as our key to answer some of these down here. Number 1, practice drawing quarter rests by tracing over the outlines. Draw 4 quarter rests in each blank measure. Since we're in 4/4 time, also called common time, we have to draw 4 quarter rests because they want 4 in each. So we would start here, and we would do that. We would follow them, and we'd find that it's really hard to indicate where they are. You'll notice they start around the 4th line and they end about the middle of the first space. Here's how I draw them. And it's not terribly pretty, but I can tell it's a quarter rest. Kind of looks like a sideways M or W, and it has sharp edges on it. Or, I like to say, the number 3. There you go. Oh, so much easier to draw those. You notice I'm trying to get them mostly in the third space and the second space with the sharp edges here. Didn't do a great job on some of them, but they're there. Now, the half rests and the whole rests I'm going to be much pickier about. So we're going to do number 2 here. Draw 2 half rests in each measure. Why do we need to draw 2? Because they get 2 beats of silence. By the way, for this first one, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And you notice I put these things around them. That indicates a beat of rest. And when we clap and count them, we put our hands off to our sides. For number 2, this would be 1, 2. I'm going to draw it like this. This would be a half rest too, but it would start on beat 3 and carry through 4. So we do the same. Second measure, need to space them out so it begins on around beat 1. Notice on the half rest I go to about the middle of the third space. I'm not touching. I'm not filling out. Some kids will draw it all the way like that. I don't know what that is. That could be a whole rest. That could be a half rest. Nobody knows what that is. So you have to be very specific to stop in the middle of the third space. We're going to go to about beat 3, where that would be, and do the same. I'll do one more for you, and you can do the others. Okay, I also want you to go back and do this to remind you of how we write them. Now, different schools have different thoughts about how to write your numbers. This has been pretty consistent with our program, so at this school we're going to use this, and it also helps you to show you where the beats of silence are. You can do these 2 on your own. Number 3, Same deal here. This is much easier to draw because you're only drawing one. But very specifically, it is on the 1, 2, 3, 4th line, and it is under the 4th line. Very, very important. Very, very important. Now, since it fills a measure of 4/4 time, composers will write them right in the middle to show this thing is empty. I don't want you to do anything here except for maybe breathe. Don't play anything. Usually during these kind of rests, other instruments are performing. Maybe you're a percussionist and you have to go from one instrument to another. But rests are very important too. Okay, in every one of them, I stopped about halfway. Started on the 4th line and I stopped about halfway in the 3rd space. Now for our numbers, and I want you to do this as well. 2, 3, 4. Put your brackets on the outside. Do your best to space them out. There you go. Number 4, write the counts below the rest. So we have a combination of all the different rests that we've learned. This would still be 1, but in brackets now, 2, in brackets now, 3, in brackets, and 4. There you go. This one, we're going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to put them on the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason I have you do this is sometimes you're going to have to show me the math. You're going to have to show me that you understand how the rhythm is performed. And you can do that by performing it, but you also need to be able to write your numbers. One last measure here. Done. Of course, we could clap and count this, but it wouldn't sound like much of anything. We would end up putting our hands out like this. 1, 2, and 3, and we would pulse on them. So it really wouldn't sound like anything. We're going to put a check here. Got all these guys done. Number 5, write the count below the notes and rest. So we have a combination of course, sound and silence. Then clap and count the rhythm out loud. So we're in 4/4 still. This would be 1, 2, and nothing changed. This is still 3/4, but we're going to add our brackets along the outside edges here. Next one would be 1 in brackets, 2 in brackets, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 in brackets because it's a half rest. This is facing up and this is facing down. I really wish they put a staff in here so you could see it a little better, but they didn't. They're just showing rhythm. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Here's 4. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to put that dash there to show that that would carry on. As a matter of fact, to stay consistent, we'll just do this here. Now, in your rhythm practice worksheets that we have in the other book, we don't even put the dash. You would just write where you would articulate, or in other words, where you would start the sound, or if you were a percussion instrument, where you would hit it. Okay? Now, this would sound like this. From left to right, I'll count you off, and you're going to clap and count with me. 1 and 2 and... Oh, I need to count you off. 1 and 2 and clap and count, go. 1 and 2 and rest. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and hands out 2 and 3. Here's measure 5. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice I did the entire thing while subdividing. I said eighth notes the entire time. Now I'm going to count you off. I want you guys to clap and count, and I am going to play it on piano. 1 and 2 and number 5, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, measure 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. There you go. Now we can put a check here next to number 5. Number 6, write the count below the notes and rest, then add the missing bar lines. So we're in 4/4 time again. Happens to be in treble clef. Some of these were in bass clef. It doesn't matter. Need to know how to read both. 1, 2, 3. This must be 4, but it's not your typical 4. It's silence. Rests are usually where we breathe. And we have to add a bar line because it's the end of that measure. 1, 2, 3. This would be 4. Bar line. 1, 2. Here's 3, 4. And here's our bar line because it's after 4. 1 in brackets. 2, 3, 4. Bar line. 1. And this would be 2, 3, 4. And you're going to clap and count, and I'm going to play that with the exact notes on this piano over here. I'll count you off. Get your hands up. 1 and 2 and ready and go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 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 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I stopped it right in time after the end of beat 4. That sounded kind of cool. So music is sound and time. And of course we need to breathe on wind instruments, so we have these rests in here as well. There are also pauses in our musical sentences. So we'll put a check here, and we are done with that worksheet.